Sickle cell is a hereditary blood disorder which treats in 25% of all people in West and Central Africa. Approximately 5% of the world's population carries trait genes for hemoglobin disorders, mainly sickle cell disease and thalassemia. In this documentary, reporter Salasi Kove-Seyram traveled to parts of Ghana and Nigeria to investigate how people respond to the disease. He looks beneath the myths and examines the promises and the challenges in caring for those affected with sickle cell disorders.
What you're witnessing is a hatto, a traditional procedure believed to cure sickle cell. This mother brought her sick baby to the village herbalist, whom she believes has a cure for her ailing child. Sickle cell is a genetic disease which affects the blood vessels. It has no known cure, apart from a few breakthroughs in stem cell transplants. Often, doctors encourage their patients to follow certain steps.
Patients who have sickle cell disease should follow their doctor's advice. Because with the herbs, it is definitely true that there are some that may have good contents, but here from us, from this end, we can never tell whether that bottle of concoction contains something dangerous or not.
But what I found in my reporting is a step behind this knowledge.
Traditionally, they believe that the source of the sickness is in the bone, and this is mainly caused by worms. So they normally make scars and then put some herbs on it for the worms in the bone to come out. Sometimes when the herbs have got rotten, maggot is coming out, they assume it is from the bone. And once the maggots are out, we are cured. Still, they are having the crisis.
In the same village, I came across a father who took his son to the herbalist for the same procedure.
Antimi nyine. Saya na wakwati fisa ana medina chinki akoko dota sa no mo ye dro en ejima na bidi abakọ abrowa binchena wase yare no ya la pupul no ti oba pedro amam na wa pedro na ama kura na wanum ana wa makko na ma medi dro na sresre ho na de na ko ti ekoya no na esawo ma na ma ho se wada se kwatifi ati me nyini papa wa nyini sa na wa sa ho se wa start tefi no na ho na sa ya mremre.
The literacy rate in the community is very high. So what we do is we normally educate them. Apart from that, there is nothing we can do.
Cutting parts of the skin and introducing herbs into the bloodstream as a form of treatment for sickle cell is common in most parts of the Volta and northern regions of Ghana. About 20 years ago, Fauzia Ibrahim went through the same procedure. Now a 30-year-old with 2 kids, she tells her story for the first time.
My parents had no idea what I had then. All they knew was that I was always sick. It got to a point, an old man came and saw me in crisis one time and said that they needed to cut my skin, just give me some marks and put some medicine inside, and they would have to cut my entire body. In fact, my hair, they had to scrape the whole hair, make it bald, and then make these same marks on my scalp, just to put medication there, and then my hands had all these marks and blood oozing out. The procedure is quite bizarre because they had to put this hot substance, which is like pepper in leaves form, cover me up, and it had so many rules. My mother is not allowed to see me in the room. They needed an old person according to tradition. My auntie had to cook for me, and cooking for me had nothing to do with the everyday food we had to eat. It had everything to do with the same herbs that they had put on my skin, but fresh ones. I had to eat that for the entire period. I'm not supposed to sleep on anything but the leaves as well. And it was bizarre.
Our detecting some sickness, we were thinking it's a fever. In 14 years' time, we detect to see that it's a sickle cell. At that time, we have already taken the local treatment, cut its body.
In a way, I wanted, because I was always in pain, and I really wanted a solution and all the bullying in the school to stop. And guess what? After the whole procedure, the 2 weeks procedure, I was bald, and they did all sort of rituals to get me okay. 2 weeks after the procedure, I had crisis.
The World Health Organization projects that as many as 30% of Ghanaians are carriers of the sickle cell trait. An estimated 15,000 children are born with the disease in Ghana each year. In the absence of knowledge on how to manage the disease, many go in search of their own cures. As I traveled across the country, I wanted to get a sense of how much Ghanaians knew about the disease. I got some answers.
I know it's a killer disease. I know it's passed on from parents to children. And I know that when you die at a certain age earlier than the normal, maybe between 18 and 20.
I know it's not a disease, but it's an anemia, or it's something which is inherited.
I know it's hereditary. It's passed from parent to children. When both parents have the cells, then a child can have it also.
Sickle cell, what I know is normally when you see the people say this person is sickle cell, is SS. But it was recently that we got to know that it's just inherited from their parents.
It normally requires an inheritance of sickle cell genes, and that is both parents, the man and the woman, who then pass on to their kids.
Sickle cell is an inherited condition in that individuals who have the disease have been born with it. It's not something that you acquire after you've been born. And for someone to have sickle cell disease, it means a substance that we have inside our red cells, which is hemoglobin, is of the type that is called S. And normally what individuals have is A. So if someone does not have sickle cell disease, you are expecting that they would have inherited an A from the father and an A from the mother, so that they are AA. If someone inherits just one S, that is only one parent passes on an S, we say that the individual has the trait. It's not sickle cell disease. So for someone to have sickle cell disease, they must have inherited an S from both parents, or an S from one and another abnormal hemoglobin from the other. So you do have individuals who have sickle cell disease and are hemoglobin SC or SF or SS. So any two abnormal hemoglobins, one of which is an S, qualifies to be called sickle cell disease.
It means a lot to have sickle cell anemia, especially in this part of our world, in Africa. It takes a strong, spirited person to be able to survive sickle cell anemia, not just because of the disease, but what you go through with it.
For a long time, sickle cell disease was considered a death sentence in parts of Ghana. You could not live beyond certain ages due to the absence of care. Gradually, things are improving. In 1991, Dr. Kweku Ohene-Frimpong of the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia first introduced the idea of newborn screening and testing for sickle cell.
It was really back in 1991 that I approached the Ministry of Health that I wanted to do something in newborn testing, because I had developed the same thing for the state of Pennsylvania as a pilot program in Philadelphia. Then 2 years later, the state picked it up for a statewide program. That was happening in all the different states in America. So I said, well, if we could do that there, we should try and see if we could do it here.
The Ministry of Health decided to establish a clinic in Kumasi for the newborn screening on a pilot basis. Samples from the screening were to be tested at the Noguchi Memorial Institute in Accra.
I think it was April 1st, 93 that we started the actual testing in Kumasi, screening in Kumasi, where newborns at various midwives' clinics or Komfanochi would be tested. And so the program went on for 15 years. We haven't established in other regions in Ghana as yet, but we are hoping to roll out maybe within 4 years. It will take about that much time to roll out so that we can screen the majority of newborns on a nationwide basis.
We know that technically we can do the work, we can train people to do the work, but the rate of expansion depends on how much government is able to fund us, so we can buy more reagents, so we can train more people and be able to carry it on.
When the pilot project ended, the Ministry of Health in Ghana developed a strategic plan. Sickle cell was on the list. The ministry planned to extend the newborn screening beyond the pilot project, which Dr. Ohene-Frimpong started. But this plan is yet to begin. As the nation awaits plans by the Health Ministry to extend the newborn screening to every part of Ghana, individuals such as Fauzia and other families have to grapple with the daily realities of living with the disorder.
Patients with sickle cell disease are calling for an end to stigmatization. According to them, people shun them when they experience crisis.
People still don't understand what the whole disease is about. You find educated men, educated women who still think that if their son is dating somebody who has sickle cell, is a no-go area. We have educated women who will not allow their sons to date a sickle cell person, all because of the misconception and the lack of knowledge.
In science, we say that the strength of the community is determined by the weakest link, or the strength of whatever we are is determined by the weakest link. So if we have individuals amongst us who have a disability or otherwise that need support, and we are not supporting them, we are rather shunning them, I think it's an indictment on all of us.
I met Ifya, a woman who has lived with sickle cell for over 50 years. She agreed to talk about her life experiences, but asked for an anonymous video interview.
I am a marketing executive. I work in a public organization, and for that reason I'm doing the interview anonymously. I've been in the habit of never volunteering the fact that I have sickle cell until after I have proven myself in an organization. So whilst I will fill in the forms and answer the questions as truthfully as I can, I don't deny that I have sickle cell, but I don't make a point of advertising it either until I have had a chance to prove myself in an organization, simply because of the prejudices that intentionally or unintentionally might come into play, where you are denied opportunities for advancement or even the opportunity to get a job because they fear that you will be taking too much time off and they won't be able to cope. You think to yourself, this is not going to define me. This illness is not going to define me. I'm going to do what I can when I can, enjoy life when I can, do the best that I can when I can. I don't use it as an excuse, and I do my best. A lot of the time I can forget I have sickle cell, or rather I make myself forget. I don't mean that recklessly. I don't mean that I forget or try to deny it, but I make sure that it doesn't stop me doing what I can do when I can do it. When I was a teenager, I was always getting ill, and I guess that's because I hadn't yet learned to recognize the triggers that could bring about a crisis. So I would read my body as much as I could. I wasn't able to always prevent a crisis, but certainly by avoiding things like exposing my chest when it was cold, or running in the rain, or doing things like that, things that kids like to do, I avoided getting crisis as much as I could. You need to know your body. You need to know how you feel when you are having a crisis, because it always starts off slowly and then builds up. So you start to recognize symptoms like odd pains here and there, and then it gets progressively worse. So try to avoid the situations that bring about these pains. As soon as you realize you're starting to have pain, either try to take your medication or go into hospital or seek your pain relief that you've been prescribed, or make sure that you're in a situation where you can get help quickly. Don't think that even though you're getting your pain, you could start to go on a journey, for instance. I mean, that's just asking for trouble. So read all those signs, know your body, and take care of yourself. Close family, some members of my own close family have died from the disease. It can be sad because, you know, there's no control over it. And that's the thing about sickle cell. You can try to manage it as well as you can, but one episode can take you. So knowing that, you know, you've just got to be as careful as you can. But, you know, the same people who died from sickle cell, it's the same with life, with everybody's life. Nobody knows what will happen tomorrow. Thank God, when I got to 50, I was like, wow, I made it to 50. And now I'm mid-50s. I'm like, oh, I'm going to hopefully, I've made it to mid-50s. Hopefully I'll make it to mid-60s, mid-70s, who knows?
By virtue of its large population, Nigeria has the highest pool of sickle cell traits in the world. It is estimated that over 40 million Nigerians are carriers of the trait. Some 150,000 babies are born with the disease every year. I traveled to Lagos to meet a man who is instrumental in Nigeria's management of sickle cell.
I started working with blood disorders, as leukemia and so on. I found sickle cell, a lot of patients with sickle cell. And I thought they should know more about what they had and so on. So that's how my interest in sickle cell started. Sickle Cell Club is supposed to give information to those who have sickle cell and to their parents. So they are encouraged to join the club to find this information. But we found that beyond that, you have to start doing things like proper education, maybe laboratory work that will give accurate results, research, and we found you have to have a center. So then we went into forming the Sickle Cell Foundation, because that's a different ball game now. Not just information and advocacy. And then we started building this center, raising the funds from Nigerians, corporate and individual Nigerians. A lot of people who are educated believe that, we don't need to waste money on sickle cell. It's easy. Just pass a law. If you have the trait, don't marry anybody with the trait. And, if you're a carrier, don't. They believe you can make people. And really, that's a misconception. You cannot make people marry people. There's this conception that once you do that, it doesn't work that way. It's against human rights, and people don't stick to it. The way forward is to accept it. You have this condition, needs a lot of research. There's a lot of things we still don't know. Yes, sometimes they have these pains, and we still don't know exactly what causes that pain. But when we know, we'll be able to prevent it better, and we're able to stop it quicker.
I also came across news in Nigeria about a new drug for managing sickle cell anemia. The drug, made from 4 botanical species indigenous to Nigeria, is the result of a partnership between a local herbalist and the Nigerian Institute for Pharmaceutical Research and Development. I traveled to Abuja to investigate claims behind the drug.
Key thing Administered is doing is to bring modern technology into existing practices. Because of the way herbal products are being evaluated, they are in use. So already we have a clue. We don't do the throughput thing ordinarily, or if we do, it is to confirm. All we need to do is to define it in a bottle, in a capsule, and what quantity, and can we assure the quality. That's what we are doing, using scientific methods.
As far as 9% is concerned, of course, the recipe was given by a traditional healer, and then we verified the recipes as it were from the traditional healer, and we found that it had some activity. Of course, then we now went systematically on improving. That is, we got the plants that were involved, then we got the formulation right, and that was how it came to be.
Our role in 9% is basically to, first of all, establish quality control parameters, specifications. So these are natural products. They are not like your orthodox products that you already have the specifications for each of the parameters established. So we have to get them and find out what are those things that will consistently tell us about the quality of the product.
In the pharmacological sciences, we study efficacy, the effects of chemical compounds and drugs on the body. So when we were developing 9%, we had to do studies that show the effect of 9%, the extract, on the sickling. We want to see whether humans and animals, when they ingest these compounds, they will be safe.
Initially, 9% came to Administered as a liquid dosage form. And we now had a series of concentration procedures. And we had, as a department, the challenge of producing it into a formulation. And it went through several stages, but we were able to conquer all, and we came up with a capsule formulated, which had granules inside the capsules. It's now left to government and several hitches here and there, but as an institute, we are ready for it to go back. It was once on the shelf, so we are ready for it to go back on the shelf.
I remember in JSS, my friends used to gossip. In fact, some would come and ask me, that they are told that I have sickle cell and I will die at the age of 18. So what's going to happen? Why do I come to school and all that? I used to panic because that's all I knew, that at age 18 I would die. But I was still very strong. I still come to school. And you won't believe it, I always waited for my 18th birthday. I actually thought I'm going to die on that day. So my friends, I think the month of my birth, they were waiting. Everybody was waiting. So when I come to school, they are staring at me. They said she will die at age 18 because she has sickle cell. And so they're asking me, some of my very close friends were weeping. And I had this very good friend, Rita. She didn't really believe that.
I remember that day. It wasn't a pleasant news, honestly, it wasn't. And even though all hope was lost, I personally, somehow, I believed deep down me that it's just something somebody is saying. I knew Fauzia wasn't just about to die, because despite everything, she had been through a lot. She had resisted till that time.
She always told me that I won't die, I shouldn't mind them, I will not die, you know. So you won't believe on my 18th birthday, I was actually waiting to die.
I really think that if she has come this far, I'm sure, and I know, as we always tell ourselves, that we'll grow old together. We'll sit one day and we'll look back, we'll laugh, and we'll thank God as we see our own children also grow and prosper.
Every birthday is more of an extra special day for me as a sickle cell person. You know, I don't know how people view their birthdays, but for me it's very special that I have to say that, okay, I am a year older again. And I'm very thankful that I got to that stage where I can say that, okay, I added another year to my life. In fact, after 18, I'm 19, 20, and, you know, it's ongoing.
Everybody in the world knows where sickle cell disease is most common. 75 to 80% of babies born in the world with sickle cell disease are born in sub-Saharan Africa. We've known that for many decades. But this is where the least amount of resources are being devoted to this condition. And this is because these are generally poor countries. They depend so much for their budget support from external sources. These external sources, many of them don't have sickle cell disease in their countries, or they have it to such a small extent that they're never on their own going to think that they should address a problem called sickle cell disease unless we ask them to. And then they can look at whatever we've done and say, oh, this is really a problem, we need to help it. So we always thought that our pilot newborn screening project will provide some data that they can use to say, oh, this is a major health problem. Unfortunately, sometimes for poor countries, your priorities are not set by you, they're almost determined by your donor partners who decide, well, for these next 5 years, we want to deal with polio.